promise of AI products like Microsoft 365 Copilot is to make us all more productive, to save time, and to be able to achieve more. But in a lot of cases, while users are really successful in creating more output, there's a question mark over whether what they are creating is better or driving more real productivity. This quantity-boosted but quality-reduced work output has even gotten itself a name: Workslop. In this video, I'm going to look at this issue from my angle as someone who has helped many businesses over the last couple of years in adopting Microsoft 365 Copilot successfully. Is Workslop really a problem? And if it is, what causes it? And what do we need to do about it? This is information everyone using AI for business needs to know. My name is Nick DeCourcy. I'm a Microsoft 365 consultant who specialises in AI adoption for small and medium-sized businesses. I'm also a Microsoft MVP for Microsoft 365 Copilot. If you're interested in keeping up with AI advancements, make sure you get subscribed to the channel and drop this video a like so you get to see more from me in the future. And if you're interested in working with me, check out the links down in the video description to get in contact. A fundamental tension we have to acknowledge is that doing more work faster doesn't necessarily make us more productive. A construction worker with an electric drill can put holes in lumber far faster than someone using a hand tool. But if that speed advantage leads them to stop measuring carefully, the result is not more productivity. It is a piece of wood that looks like Swiss cheese. The tool made them faster, but it did not make the work better. And when we think specifically of knowledge work, success is measured in value built, not words generated. But this is an important lens to use when considering what we're trying to achieve adopting AI in our businesses. Tools like Copilot can amplify output very easily. They can help people produce more emails, more summaries, more documents, more plans, and more meeting notes. But using AI to amplify quality requires a different skill: discernment. Too often, rollout plans, training, and adoption campaigns are built around the wrong picture of success. Organisations will focus on teaching users the features of Copilot and measure return on investment through how much the tools are used. And it's simply assumed that workers using AI more often get quicker while delivering equivalent or better results. This is a fundamentally flawed way of looking at AI adoption that is anchored heavily in a very different view of how software interfaces with work. The saying goes, a bad workman always blames his tools. But in the AI age, the problem is far more complicated. With AI, many organisations have not yet defined what aspects of work control quality. There are people in organisations highlighting this as a problem and pointing to a real adoption gap, yet too often these concerns are dismissed as an unwillingness to change. But the reality is that when we deploy AI around speed, volume and usage instead of quality, judgment and responsibility, we should not be surprised when we end up with a greater volume of work being done, but a general feeling of decreasing value. It's important to be specific about what's driving these issues. This is largely a problem of people rather than of technology, but not caused by a lack of commitment to doing things right. Rather, a lack of guidance on what success with AI-assisted work should look like leads us to failure modes that are a path of least resistance. This critique of AI driving slop content is far from the only criticism out there. I could probably make a feature film-length video if I dug into every problem, legitimate and not, that has been levelled at these tools. But I do think the Workslop argument is one that resonates, is real, and is likely driven by factors that can be articulated clearly enough that any organisation adopting AI can seek to mitigate them. This slop argument is one that has risen to such a volume that even Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella has addressed it, making comments about the slop framing, and this year at Davos suggesting similar issues as a risk for the social contract of building AI as well as for its adoption. So I think it's fair to say that AI adoption practitioners like me should be starting to tackle it head on. An experiment we could all do is to compare the emails or documents we were creating before we ever touched AI back in 2022 or 23 to that which we create with Copilot today. What do you see? Are your 2026 documents or emails clearer, more accurate, or easier for the recipient to act on? Or have they just become longer, more polished, maybe seemingly more professional, but ultimately more words that are more generic? If what you see is work that is more verbose without being more useful, then you may have just spent your time learning how AI is a great tool for producing slop. That extra unnecessary content or polish is not in itself a sign of greater productivity. This is an issue that is gaining real traction as something to be fixed right now. Research from BetterUp Labs and Stanford's Social Media Lab, published in the Harvard Business Review, has highlighted and tried to get to the root of this problem. And to be clear, this is not an issue of lazy people using AI badly, although that segment may exist. This is a more multifaceted issue everyone using AI in business must get to grips with. Across everything I have read and seen addressing this problem, and my own experience of leading Copilot adoption training for hundreds of users, I see this breaking down as three distinct issues. First, a lot of focus is given to the value of AI in eliminating the barrier of the blank page, the idea that many users get stuck with how to start. But we give relatively little time to considering the barrier of the already written text, and just take for granted that a good first draft is universally helpful. Increasingly, it appears that this understanding is far from correct, that AI users are sitting on a big knot of stuff that looks great but could be wrong, while lacking the skills to accurately untie it. And what's the reason for this? Well, editing the work of others is an entirely different skill set than starting from scratch. Some are great at this, but many get mentally anchored in what is already there, with foundational errors leading to circular mistakes rather than iterative refinement. And this isn't just a writing problem. I've seen competent users of Excel with great muscle memory for using their own workbooks get lost when trying to understand formulae written by Copilot. This isn't a negative reflection of the work Copilot has done, nor of the skills of the user, but just a mismatch where someone who is a strong Excel user for a specific set of processes doesn't necessarily have a full range of skills to allow them to fully understand a completely different approach. Most workers have a fairly narrow set of skills in this way, and this creates a tension with the broad, all-knowing but potentially wrong approach of AI. Second, AI has given air to a deep-rooted quality anxiety many of us feel. We suddenly have this tool that can write with flair and polish, answer questions with a level of confidence that makes it seem like an expert, and produce an amount of output that on its face seems complete and authoritative. There are people around us using these tools and seemingly achieving more. The media is telling us that those who don't use them will be left behind, and yet every top-tier AI company still gives us their responses with a warning that they may be wrong. Knowing how to navigate this new reality is legitimately stressful for everyone involved. You don't want to fall behind. You do want to get more done. But the path of least resistance is to focus in on the appearance of intelligence and polish, rather than the statement of potential error. After all, do you want to be the guy still sending your misspelled emails when everyone else is sending multi-paragraph missives that might say exactly the same thing, but certainly do appear a lot more professional? This is a human problem enabled by technology. Most of us have learned to read polish as a signal of competence, because historically, polish would have been hard-won and did align with a certain level of care and skill. AI breaks that alignment. Polish is now cheap, but our instincts still paint it as valuable. And last, connected to, but importantly different to this AI anxiety, is our deference for the technology these tools run on. No more than we are used to fact-checking the polished and confident are we used to the idea that what comes out of a computer might be wrong. It doesn't matter how many times we are told AI is probabilistic rather than deterministic. Over decades, we have learned that the answer the calculator gives is probably more accurate than a human. Imagine someone joining your office who spends their afternoons checking Excel's math longhand. You'd think they were crazy. And if your boss had any concern at all for productivity, they'd not be long in that job. But now we're telling people to take the outputs from the device we've learned to trust and treat them with a level of suspicion we would rarely have to use in our workplaces. This isn't really a problem of technology. The reasons for the fact-checking of AI are well known. But it's a big problem about how we engage with technology catching up with a new reality. The construction worker with his Swiss cheese framing wasn't let down by a tool. He was let down by over-indexing the value of using that tool in relation to what success in that job actually looks like. The same is true with AI. Many have now taken to directly blaming AI as a technology for the Workslop outputs that are afflicting our businesses, while missing that this problem is driven by what workers are using these tools for, rather than any inherent failure of the tool itself. However, it's important to recognise that while we might be somewhat blind to this problem when we are the pilot interfacing with our co-pilots to produce work, the downstream recipients are not. The HBR article I mentioned notes that around half of workers receiving Workslop from others take a negative view of the sender. What I've seen in my own practice is that experience and often also seniority matters. Why might this be? Well, more experienced or senior people tend to spend more of their time in that discernment loop, where they are given work outputs or opinions or problems by others, and have built the skills to know what to do with this to achieve a good result. By contrast, those earlier in a career might still be building those skills and so might be more overwhelmed by the changing goalposts AI outputs create for knowledge work. This implies to me that most organisations probably do have the skills and knowledge available to ensure their AI adoption focuses in the right places. This requires an ongoing and coherent approach, not just training people on what AI does and then leaving them to go back to using it within their normal flow of work, but to intentionally redesign the approach to work with focus on those skills and steps that are needed to be successful with AI. Copilot adoption, or AI adoption more generally, is not a training. It's a change in approach. It must be considered from the strategic level down to the operational and be a focus of every part of planning and delivery through your business. Your AI is a capability for achieving better alongside your people and other resources and must be framed as such with real thought given to how to use it with maximum impact. In the future, access to AI might become a given, like the availability of electricity or water in the workplace, and people might just get it. But that is not today. But I want to shift from the conceptual to the actionable. Your organisation has adopted AI, and if you've watched to this point in this video, the set of issues I've highlighted here resonate enough that you're concerned they exist for your work or that of your business. What should you do about it tomorrow? First, you need a framework that helps you verify and edit AI's work without you getting stuck in an endless loop of anxiety about pressing send or save. The one I use in my trainings is called Scope and focuses first on risk assessment to clarify the stakes involved with the output, and then walks through specific steps to look at to ensure AI has done what it needs to give you a good result. I made a video on this approach and will drop a link to it down in the description. Second, among your close colleagues across your team or within your whole organisation, whatever level you're working at, you need to restart and sustain an ongoing conversation about AI. AI use shouldn't be hidden. AI mistakes shouldn't be covered up. And AI-based frustrations when you receive a 10-page email from someone who used to send 2 lines shouldn't be ignored. We are socialised not to question polish, but the polish that is a problem is the AI's, not your colleagues, and talking about it must be normalised. In many organisations, this ongoing conversation will be formalised in a champions programme where highly engaged individuals from across the business share information and propagate it widely. But even if your action tomorrow is just to put Microsoft 365 Copilot on your weekly team meeting agenda, that's a step in the right direction. Last, your schedule must reflect the fact that upskilling for AI and doing work with AI are 2 distinct and separate tasks. Too often, users choose the time when they are under pressure to get work done as the time to experiment with AI, as the loudest message they've heard is it lets you get things done quicker. This is the worst time to experiment. The hidden failure mode of an output that looks good but is actually Workslop is most likely to go out the door in these conditions. The right time to experiment is when you have the flexibility for things to go wrong, when you can truly take in how the AI output was helpful and how it wasn't, and take the time to record your findings for future refinement. If you are still getting your feet wet with AI use and you don't have time on your calendar for this experimentation, you are opening yourself up to huge Workslop risk. Do these actions eliminate the potential for Workslop? Of course not. We are all still getting used to how AI tools work inside our businesses, and the only way we're going to get good results over time is to keep that process of adoption active in our minds. But by being intentional about that ongoing change to how we work, we can ensure that we support each other to drive the benefits of AI adoption rather than problems. And frankly, that is the goal with all processes and systems, where every day we just focus on reducing issues and avoid perfection being the thing that's standing in the way of good. Do you agree with my takeaways here? How have you addressed Workslop in your organisation or with your use of AI? start that conversation down in the comments. Thanks for watching through to the end. Until the next video, bye bye.